doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Here we go now. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. I'm not holding it in anymore. I'm gonna shout it out loud. I understand now what I'm here for, and what this life is about. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. About lending a hand. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. There's a voice that I've heard for years. I learned to keep it inside. Well, now it's coming in loud and clear. I want a deeper life. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. About lending a hand. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. All right now, swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine.
Welcome back. I am Reverend Rhona Segarra, and it is my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the community at Unity of New Westminster in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. We would love to stay connected with you, so please subscribe to our newsletter or like us on Facebook or subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way you can always know what's going on in our community. The Unity movement offers ideas for full and abundant living. We draw on the teachings of Jesus, who we consider our primary way shower and example. And we honor that there is universal wisdom to be found in faith traditions, in song, in story, in poetry, all over the planet. We respect and honor every person's right to choose their own life path. All are welcome here. All are worthy here. All are celebrated here.
We open our service today in prayer. I gratefully acknowledge that I speak to you on the traditional and unceded territory of the Semiahmoo First Nation. And we give thanks to First Nation peoples everywhere for their custody of this beautiful land. We give thanks for our connection one with each other. That connection that happens whether we are in each other's physical presence or not. The connection that binds us all together. We acknowledge that there is only one presence, that there is only one power, that power that is understood by many names, many faces, and many paths. And we affirm that regardless of the name, the face, or the path of our understanding, that we are one human family. And it is in that knowledge of our oneness that we send a blessing for love, for peace, for contentment to every being on this planet, to every being, regardless of all the labels that threaten to divide us. We are one. And for this knowledge, for this intention, and for the power that we have to bless, we give thanks. Amen.
You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. You are the heart, you are the hands, you are the voice of spirit on earth, and who you are and all you do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are and all we do is a blessing to the world. We are the heart, we are the hands, we are the voice of spirit on earth, and who we are and all we do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am and all I do is a blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, blessing to the world. I am the heart, I am the hands, I am the voice of spirit on earth, and who I am and all I do is a blessing to the world. I'm a blessing to the world. I'm a blessing to the world.
Fallacy. The use of invalid or otherwise faulty reasoning in the construction of an argument. The argument may appear stronger than it really is if the fallacy is not spotted. Have you ever been in a group where someone has said something with a voice of authority and you've kept quiet even though you know that the statement they made wasn't accurate? Have you ever known at some level that an argument had no merit and still you have chosen not to speak up? Maybe it was to save someone from embarrassment, or maybe it was because you didn't want to be the one lonely voice in the group. Have you ever wondered whether you should speak up? I would venture a guess that most of us have done some of these things at least once or twice in our lives. It is a human desire to want to fit in. And one of the most powerful ways that we can fit in is by buying into the beliefs of a group, sometimes sharing educated guesses that would align with the group, or by choosing not to expose the fault in an argument that someone in the group, often a leader or an influencer, might be espousing. Sometimes, though, it doesn't feel good. We don't want to risk feeling isolated from the group. Yet, we don't want to seem as if we're condoning something that isn't true. What if? What if we could belong to ourselves so completely that we wouldn't feel the need to prove our worth with bluster or with educated guesses? What if we could belong to ourselves so completely that we could speak truth to someone else despite the feeling of discomfort? And what if we could do it all in a way that remained respectful and civil? These are some of the thoughtful questions that are raised in the book, Braving the Wilderness, The Quest for True Belonging and the Courage to Stand Alone, by social researcher Dr. Brene Brown. This book shares the findings of a study of over 200,000 data points, years long, on the subject of belonging and fitting in. And this idea, the encouragement to, pardon my language, but speak truth to bullshit, be civil, is one of 4 main themes that emerge as important if we want to move from fitting in to belonging. There is a difference between belonging and fitting in. We want, on one hand, to be authentic and true to ourselves, belonging, and at the same time, we have a deep human desire to belong to a group, which sometimes requires that we adjust who we are and that we fit in. And the pull between these two desires sometimes leads us to sacrifice our values, to sacrifice our authenticity When we choose to feel the connection and safety and comfort of the group that we want to fit into, instead of choosing our own beliefs and values. The problem, though, is that when we sacrifice who we are in order to belong, we aren't really being true to ourselves, and so we don't truly belong. Instead, we play a role, and this takes a certain amount of energy, and it leads to a sense of disquiet in ourselves. We fear being found out. We fear being exposed as an imposter. We fear being kicked out of the tribe. And as a result, we actually end up feeling more isolated and more lonely. And this was actually a surprising finding from the research, which showed that belonging to a community where people held the same beliefs does not necessarily result in more community, more connection, and more belonging. Rather, it actually results in a significant increase in loneliness. Isn't it interesting that in a fitting in culture, we can be in the middle of a crowd and feel more lonely than if we're alone? Is there a way to truly belong? Is there a way to be present with people without sacrificing who we are? Can we fully belong to ourselves and at the same time remain connected with others who may think differently than we do? Brene Brown writes, "True belonging is the spiritual practice of believing in and belonging to yourself so deeply that you can share your most authentic self with the world and find sacredness in both being a part of something and standing alone in the wilderness." True belonging doesn't require you to change who you are. It requires you to be who you are. And being who we are requires at times stepping into places that are uncomfortable, scary, where we can't rely on the group to support us, and where we may have to stand alone. Hence the title of her book, Braving the Wilderness. And I am guessing that out of over 200,000 data points, there would have been hundreds of themes that might have emerged around this tension between fitting into a group and belonging to ourselves. And yet Brown highlights only 4 main themes to help us move to greater belonging with ourselves. And as I said, and I won't need to say it again out loud and long, speak truth to BS, be civil, is one of the top 4 themes. There must be a reason. Why is it so important to speak truth to BS? Because arguments based in BS often force us to make a binary choice. You're either with me or you're against me. It's either right or it's wrong. If you're not my friend, you're my enemy. And of course, all of those arguments increase the division between us. We move into our dogmatic corners. We separate from each other. We stop talking to each other, and our hope of finding a creative solution and having a meaningful discussion is significantly diminished. And then, from our entrenched point of view, we feel more isolated. And so we protect ourselves. We don't want to be wrong, so we stay in our own bunker and we hunker down. We insist in the rightness of our one true way. We become more defensive of our position, and we become more aggressive towards anyone who doesn't share our viewpoint. When we're in this place, it is harder to think more clearly or more critically. We have less empathy for others, and we are more numb to feelings, both our own and the feelings of others. But real life concerns are more complicated than simple statements about what's right and what's wrong, or what's good or what's bad. Solutions aren't always able to be reduced to either or choices. Effective solutions often require a move away from this absolute thinking of black and white, no gray area. Effective solutions allow for exceptions and nuances as well. And so if we want to truly belong and stay true to our integrity and values, and we want to remain connected to others, which is where the creative solutions happen, then we are called to step into this wilderness where we become, one, more adept at recognizing statements which frame debates as BS. Then two, having the courage to question the validity of the debate and the framework of the debate. And three, and perhaps hardest of all, to question that validity in a way that remains civil in tone. And so for the next 2 weeks, we'll look at this idea of speak truth to BS, be civil. Today, I want to explore and spend some time exploring some typical arguments that are actually BS, so that we can become more adept at recognizing them. And then next week, we'll look at strategies for approaching those arguments in a more civil and productive way. Our first aim is to become aware of arguments which are based on BS. How is BS different from lying? Well, think of lying as knowing the truth and then choosing to ignore it or choosing to deny it. BS is a dismissal of the truth. These arguments are often based on fallacy, which I read at the beginning of our talk today. Fallacy, the use of invalid or otherwise faulty reasoning in the construction of an argument. The argument may appear stronger than it really is if the fallacy is not spotted. The thing about fallacy, BS, is that it can be quite convincing. And it also can be quite confusing. And that is the point. Our critical thinking is challenged by some of these arguments, even though at some level we may recognize that an argument doesn't make sense. It can take a lot of energy to figure out why. And sometimes the argument catches us off guard because it comes out of left field, and we don't even know how to respond. We aren't always equipped to counter these BS, fallacious arguments effectively. So how can we know when we're being presented with bullshit arguments, with fallacy pretending to be facts? Well, in my research for this talk, I discovered a wonderful website named logicallyfallacious.com, logicallyfallacious.com, one word, which presented many examples, too many for me to cover here, of these apparently logical statements, which are actually based on false equivalencies. They are, in reality, BS. And often they require a listener to choose either one side or another, or they attack the person who is challenging the argument. Those are the two hallmarks that you'll see. I'll share a few of these common fallacies here. See if you can recognize some of these in your direct experience. You'll find them in your families, your workplaces, politics, religion. You'll find them everywhere. And so today's message is just to bring some of these to your attention so that we can look at solutions to them next week. You want to look particularly for false equivalency. This is also known as false fallacy. And false fallacies exaggerate similarities and how important similarities are. And they ignore differences and how important the differences are. And then they try and compare the two and say that they are equal. The argument is this: two different viewpoints or arguments are similar in one way, therefore they are equal. They're different in another way, but that's not important. For example, it includes something called false authority, where a person who has little or no valid credential and who relies on personal anecdotes is given the same weight as a person who is an established expert in their field and who relies on scientific evidence. We see this in arguments about climate change, for example. Many scientists believe that climate change is happening and is caused by humans. There are a small minority who disagree and think it's a hoax. So, exaggerating the similarity, there are people who believe both ways. The scientists overwhelmingly believe and have compelling evidence and credentials. On the whole, the deniers have fewer credentials and less evidence, an ignoring of that difference. And so even though there are two sides presented, it is clear that the two positions are not equal. What some random person says with the voice of authority based on a pamphlet they've read, what my sister Jill calls pamphlet PhD, should not be given the same weight as a credentialed authority. It is a false authority. It is a false fallacy that if one person has an opinion, then that person should be given the same weight as another person's opinion. Here's another BS argument to watch for. When people just make stuff up to justify their position. John says that Jane is untrustworthy because she stole something. When it's eventually proven that Jane didn't steal anything, John says, well, she's mean to her mother. I don't like her anyway. This idea of believing that somebody did something, and then when that is proven wrong, that they guess at something else is surprisingly common. So take a look and see how often that might happen in your experience, making stuff up. Another argument, when we ignore regular exceptions and we insist on a rule, even when an exception is reasonable. This is the argument that challenges black and white thinking, either or thinking. And Jesus broke this rule by healing on the Sabbath, for example. Then we have guilt by association. John says that something isn't true. Jane agrees that it is true. John agrees that something is true. Jane agrees that it's true too. But if I don't like or agree with Jane, then maybe I'm not going to like or agree with anything that John says either. So because they like each other, then maybe I don't like one if I don't like the other. Guilt by association. A false dilemma. Either this is true or that is true. This is also known as a false dichotomy, where you have two options and it's as if these are the only two possibilities. This happens so often. You're either with me or you're against me. If you love me, you'll do this. If you don't do this, that means you don't love me. What we know to be true is that there is almost always more than just two options. There's almost always an option or several other than just those two. And so watch for this common argument strategy, the false dilemma. Either this is true or that is true. We find it all the time. A related argument to false dilemma is called affirmative dilemma. And we use this one with children all the time. Do you want your milk in a cup or do you want your milk in a glass? We don't present an option to the child that includes, I don't want milk. Another BS that we hear a lot is they're saying. It's called anonymous authority. I heard that. They've been saying. It has been said that. I read this article once. Sometimes statements like these are true, but often they are not. Pay attention to the word they and question whether or not it's true. Or is it an anonymous authority? Alleged certainty, also known as assuming a conclusion. Everyone knows that X is true, therefore X is true. Everyone knows that there's a God, therefore there's a God. Well, no, everyone doesn't know that. It would be more accurate to say that many people believe in a higher power. Watch for everyone knows or we all know. Absolute authority. Another common BS argument is an appeal to anger. This is when we substitute anger or hatred or rage instead of evidence in an argument, and it is often used in the political arena. The example given on this website is, are you tired of being ignored by your government? Vote for me today. Did you notice that there was no link between the emotional teaser, are you tired of being ignored by your government, and the call to support the politician, vote for me today? Watch for appeals to your emotions. Are they attached to a related promise, or are they just designed to hook you and imply a related promise? Another argument that you may hear is a slippery slope argument. It is when a relatively insignificant first event is suggested to lead to a more significant event, which leads to another and another until some ultimate significant, largely significant event is reached. And with each step, that idea and that possibility becomes more and more improbable. So, for example, you can't go out to play with that friend of yours that I don't like, because next thing you know, you'll be going to the movies together, and then next thing you'll be wanting sleepovers, and then you'll be partying. And so therefore, I'm not going to let you go out with your friend. The giveaway statement for the slippery slope argument is next thing you know. So watch for that. Here's another one that you may be familiar with, the appeal to closure. When we know that there's not enough information, but we're sick of the topic, or the topic has become so uncomfortable that we don't want to talk about it anymore, we accept the easy argument, even if we know that we don't have enough information. We sometimes see this in police shows, where we need a quick resolution and a scapegoat so that they find some innocent person to arrest. The appeal to conclusion is a very, very common BS argument. It's like, let's get it done. Let's just make a decision. I don't care if it's right. Care. Another appeal, another argument is an appeal to fear. This is another if-then argument. If you don't accept something as true, then something terrible will happen to you. Therefore, you had better accept it as true. I think of this one in terms of religious arguments that we may have. For example, if you aren't baptized, then you will go to hell. Therefore, you must be baptized. Watch for those if-then statements that appeal to our fear. Here's another BS that we use all the time, an appeal to loyalty or patriotism. If someone is loyal to someone else, and that someone else makes a false claim, then we can accept that false claim as true, because the person we're loyal to can do no wrong. We see this a lot with celebrities and influencers, where if we like a person, then whatever they say is what we accept as truth. This is related to another, which is an appeal to popularity. Everybody is doing something, therefore that something must be the right thing to do. Is it? How about this BS argument? An appeal to repetition. If you say it often enough, it must be true. Or sometimes we appeal to faith. Faith is used when reason won't do. Then you need to have faith, because otherwise there is no argument that makes sense. And so you need to have faith to understand the argument. And the argument then is, if you have faith, you'll see that it's true. Well, faith is nice to have, but it's not a reliable method to know things. And finally, watch for what they call ad hominem arguments. Latin words, ad hominem, which are attacks on the person making an argument rather than on the addressing the argument itself. Whenever you notice that someone is attacking a person rather than addressing their point of view, or someone is attacking a group of people who support a point of view, pay attention. It may be that they have no solid evidence. And so rather than supporting their position with information and facts, instead, what they do is attack the group of people or the person. As you can see, there are many, many ways in which our ability to reason is challenged by false equivalencies or logical fallacies, by what Brene Brown calls BS, bullshit. Bullshit arguments are sometimes hard to recognize, and they can sometimes be hard to argue against. In fact, they are so hard to argue against that Brown cites something called Brandolini's law, which states that the amount of energy needed to refute bullshit is an order of magnitude bigger than to produce it. And so, next week, we will take a look at these strategies and the importance of speaking truth to BS. I've hoped that today, though, I've helped shed some light on some of the more common BS arguments. In the meantime, what I'd like you to consider this week is homework. Watch for these false arguments. Watch for these fallacies. Watch for arguments that demand either or, with me, against me, right or wrong responses. Watch for arguments which attack a person or persons rather than addressing the point. These are two major signs that an argument is based on fallacy and false equivalency or false dichotomy, either or. I hope you've been awakened to a new and empowered awareness. And I hope that you'll hear arguments with a more interested and thoughtful ear. And I hope that you join me next week as we delve deeper into how we can speak truth to these BS arguments and how we can remain civil as we do so. I bless you.
I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do.
I cannot do
No puedo hacer
all the good
todo lo bueno
that the world
que el mundo necesita. Todo el mundo necesita todo lo bueno que puedo hacer. Je ne peux pas faire tout le bien dont le monde a besoin. Dont le monde a besoin de tout le bien que je peux lui faire. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. 我ไม่能满足世界，但我能盡力奉獻。لأقدر أعمله كل شيء العالم محتاج لكن العالم محتاج كل شيء أعمله אני לא עושה את כל הטוב שהעולם צריך, אבל העולם צריך הטוב שאני עושה. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do.
Itorite sikayo suku unante dekina I soredimo kito dekayo suku itori ni nereru.
I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do. I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good I can do.
Please note that starting March 21st, our weekly prayer service time will change to 10:30 on Mondays. This schedule will work better for several of our members. All are welcome to join us as we share a time of connection and renewal, and as we hold people in prayer. At this service, we check in and we share with each other. We have a time of guided prayer, and we read the names of the people on our prayer list. It is an uplifting and restful experience. All are welcome. Mondays at 10:30, beginning on March 21st.
Last week, we had our first hybrid annual membership meeting. We had some challenges with the internet, but everyone was able to vote and to be seen and to be heard. And at that meeting, we said a fond thank you and farewell to those stepping off the board. Our president, Aaron Johannes, whose calm and intelligence has led us through much of this pandemic, and also to member at large, Colleen Gibson, whose input was always valuable, thoughtful, and practical. Thank you, Aaron and Colleen, for your service to our community. Thank you also to the board members who will remain on the board: Cliff Dellingham, Barb Good, Chris Stamelius, Greta Hurst, and Lidwina van de Spek. Our community is truly blessed by your commitment, your creativity, and your connection. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And last week, we also welcomed Glenn Hall as our newest board member. Glenn and Valerie joined Unity of New Westminster several years ago, and their commitment and participation in various aspects of our community is very much appreciated. Welcome, Glenn. I am so happy that you are joining our amazing board.
Hello everyone, my name is Glenn Hall and I've been nominated to serve on the board of Unity of New Westminster, and I'd like to thank the nominating committee for giving me the opportunity to do so. I hope my past familiarity with board and committee work will be useful to our community. I hope to be a truly good listener, and I believe that no one except God can do everything, but each of us can do something, and that is a gift that we've been given to use. Thanks.
Some of you may know that I teach computer skills to people who are entering the workplace. And I will offer similar training for those in our community who are interested in improving their computer skills. We'll begin with 2 2-hour sessions on Microsoft Word. And then depending on the pace and how that works, we may just do 1 2-hour session on PowerPoint, and then after that, an hour of Excel the following week. We'll do these on Tuesday evenings from 7 till 9 p.m., beginning March 22nd, and then March 29th for Word, and then April 5th for PowerPoint, and then Excel on April 12th. Registration will be required because I need to be able to send you emails with some practice files so that you'll be able to follow along with me as I demonstrate some of these amazing things that can be done on the computer. So I hope you join us. It is by donation, open to all, any skill level. It's beginning at the end of March, March the 22nd. Gentle reminder that we have a food pantry, which is available and open to anyone 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you know someone who would benefit from using our food pantry, please share that information. And if you are willing to donate to the food pantry, please bring your collections of canned goods so that we can put them into the food pantry for people to take with them as they need. Give what you can, take what you feel comfortable taking.
We are grateful for the financial support which we receive from those who enjoy our programs. With the pandemic, some of our expenses have been lessened and some of our expenses don't go away. So thank you for your generosity, which supports our ministry. We give a portion of our income to organizations that do amazing work in our community, both locally and in our province. So your gifts make a difference in lives. We welcome donations by credit card, check, cash, or our preferred method, Interac e-transfer to Unity of New Westminster at gmail.com. Interac is free of service charges. Thank you. Now, please bring to your hands, to your hearts, or to your minds something that you are grateful for as we give thanks and remember how much we have to be grateful for. We are so blessed.
I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful for all that I have. I am so blessed. I am so blessed. I am so grateful. I am so blessed.
And we come to the end of another service. I thank you for joining us. I hope that you enjoyed your experience with us today. I wish you all a very, very blessed week. Goodbye, everybody.
And let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God as creator, family are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
I am the light of God. I am the love of God. I am the power of God. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is. I am the light of God. I am the love of God. I am the power of God. I am the presence of God. Wherever I am, God is. You are the presence of God.